military intelligence and counterintelligence officer Luis Elizondo joins us now. Thank you for making your witness today. I want the audience to know you're also author of Imminent: Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. Luis, thank you for being with us.
Chris, thank you so much for having me.
So were you worried about what you were going to say today?
Yeah, absolutely. But I got to say, Chris, I think this was really a historic day for both Congress and for the American people. I think it was a win-win. This is now the second hearing on this topic that's been open to the public. And hopefully the public is now getting an understanding of how long our government has actually been involved in this topic, despite decades of denial.
So, look, the pushback is they're no little green men. They don't have a spaceship from outside our solar system. All of these types of videos that I'm showing right now can be explained. Well, then what are they finding? This is what you did, and you're risking your reputation to come forward and speak what you say is the truth. So what do they know?
Well, Chris, first of all, I'm risking more than my reputation. I'm risking my security clearance and my ability to even earn a living. So I think it's important to know that we have absolutely been able to confirm the existence of some sort of technology that has the ability to operate with anonymity within our controlled U.S. airspace, operate over our sensitive military installations, and possibly interfere with our nuclear equities. Now, if that's not a national security concern, I don't know what is.
Now, that's why they say, so, okay, yeah, it's some other country or it's some other concern or corporate concern on Earth, and that's why they don't tell us, because it's too dangerous. What do you say to that?
So, Chris, let's look at this from a temporal perspective. Okay, we've been dealing with this for decades, and documents now have been submitted to Congress that prove without a shadow of a doubt, since the early 1950s, we've been dealing with this issue. And when I say dealing with this issue, I'm talking about objects that still to this day can operate beyond any type of performance characteristics of our modern aircraft. So I would say, look, if one were to say, well, maybe this is Russia or China today, okay, but that doesn't explain the 1950s and 60s where these aircraft were captured on radar doing 10,000, 13,000 miles an hour in a low Earth atmosphere. Okay, what we have in comparison pales. For example, the Lockheed YF-12A SR-71 can do about 3,200 miles an hour at an unclassified level, which is pretty fast. And when it wants to take a right-hand turn, it takes roughly half the state of Ohio to do that. And what we are seeing are objects that are doing 10,000, 13,000 miles an hour and are able to execute an immediate right-angle turn, do 180 degrees, pop in and out of our atmosphere, and even underwater. So where were we in the 1950s? Well, we had barely broken the sound barrier and hadn't even made it into space. What other near-peer country even existed at that point that to this day can perform like that? The answer is we can't. And if there was a country that could do that, Chris, this would be the greatest intelligence failure this country has ever faced, even eclipsing that of 9/11 by an order of magnitude, because despite the billions of dollars we pour in investment into our intelligence community, not a single thread of intelligence over the last 7 decades has given us an indication that some adversary has developed this technology in secret and been able to deploy it effectively.
And if they had it 7 decades ago, what would they be doing with it today? And nobody is, and that raises questions also. Mr. Elizondo, anytime you want to talk, anytime there are developments, or there should be and there have not been, you have an open invitation.
Thank you, Chris. My honor and privilege. Thank you very much.
And joining me now is the chairwoman who made today happen, South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Congresswoman, thank you for being with us. Those of us who have been following this very closely have been hearing whispers of the words immaculate constellation for a few months now. You went out and put it straight on the record. Why did you think that was important?
Well, it's important that if the Pentagon or other federal agencies hiding these programs that they deny from the American public, and yet we learn recently that it actually does exist, the American people ought to know the truth and the facts. There's so much that we have overclassified. You can't talk about the date of some of the alleged UAP imagery, for example. Some of the witnesses couldn't even describe what they've seen because of the way things have been overclassified. You can't talk about the budget for some of these programs because that's classified. We overclassify everything. Into what end? Does it really make America safer? I don't think so. And the American people deserve to know the truth.
It must have been very frustrating for you sitting up there and not being able to get a lot of those straight answers. Was for people that were watching it too. And then you posted this very mysterious report for the public to see with alleged details about Immaculate Constellation. What is in here is wild. I mean, and I'm paraphrasing, but reports of F-22s getting like boxed in by flying orbs that they couldn't shake. There were satellite images or satellite image of a football field-sized flying saucer hiding in clouds seen from this satellite looking down. Have you seen any of this footage or these images?
I have not seen those images or footage, but of course we're going to want to go digging for it in a skiff right after this. But the question I asked Michael Schellenberger, the journalist who was there testifying today, was when he wrote this report about the Immaculate Constellation, did he have more than one source? And the type of sourcing he used, he had multiple sources, they had clearances, they were very credible individuals, and that's really important detail when you're bringing forth this kind of information.
Absolutely. And Congresswoman, the testimony we heard today, I mean, it was suggesting that around the time that Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon helped get those black and white videos out in 2017, that's when this shadow program was spun up to kind of vacuum up all the data in a way that the public would not know. The allegation, if I understand it correctly, was that it was done out of the executive branch, which would have been President Trump at the time. The president right now, the president-elect seems to be appointing some pretty heavy hitters that have been demanding UAP transparency to his cabinet, like Rubio, Ratcliffe. What do you think we're going to see next year when Trump takes office on this?
I hope that we'll have the most transparent and accountable administration in U.S. history, not just for UAPs, but across the board with every single federal agency, because the American people overwhelmingly voted for the truth and voted for transformational changes within the federal government. And that should be one of them. Transparency should be a part of that. We had great witnesses today, including the Admiral Gallaudet, who said that, emails were deleted when they started talking about the UAPs that were witnessed on a ship when they were out and deployed at sea. So we learned a lot of information. We learned information that the government denies. They say there is no there. These things don't exist. But yet we learned today that there are federal employees and individuals injured by crashed craft retrieval programs and being paid by the government and compensated. So you can't tell me it doesn't exist, and yet you have people who've been harmed by retrieving craft and are being paid by the government for those injuries. So it doesn't add up, and we have a lot more to investigate. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, fingers crossed we'll get some solid answers. Last question really fast. I mean, we saw bipartisan curiosity here. Do you think that's going to continue?
Oh, I hope it does. And UAPs is a place where both Democrats and Republicans alike have come together to demand transparency, to demand government accountability. The other thing that we've been doing, too, is we've been working together to protect whistleblowers. There are people that have come forward since the last hearing. There will be more people that come forward, I hope, after this hearing. And we're doing our best to protect those individuals, Democrat and Republican alike.
Congresswoman, we can't thank you enough for your time on all this. Thank you.
Okay, question for you. Are we alone in the universe? That was the central question during the latest congressional UFO hearing. If you watched yesterday, testimony from former military and intelligence personnel focused on longstanding concerns about government transparency and was at times shocking. Tom Dempsey joins us now from Washington with more. Tom, lawmakers hearing explosive new details about an alleged secret Pentagon program studying these mysterious aircraft.
That's right. Good morning, Marky. One of the most dramatic moments of this hearing came when author and journalist Michael Schellenberger presented a 12-page whistleblower report where he alleges there is a secret UAP recovery program outside congressional oversight, a program he calls Immaculate Constellation.
12 pages about this unacknowledged special access program that your government says does not exist.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace co-chairing the hearing titled Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, Exposing the Truth and acknowledging the executive branch of the government may be hiding the truth about alien life from the American people.
This is the report that says the executive branch has been managing UAP NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, quite possibly decades.
Author and journalist Michael Schellenberger highlighted that the Immaculate Constellation Report compiles detailed UAP sightings with high-resolution imagery and intelligence, providing a more comprehensive look into these mysterious phenomena. Retired Navy Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet revealing details about secret satellite images from a 2015 UFO case, the Go Fast near the USS Roosevelt, and testifying the cover-up is unacceptable.
The continued overclassification surrounding UAPs has not only hindered our ability to effectively address these phenomena, but has also eroded trust in our institutions.
In a stunning exchange, former NASA official Lou Elizondo was asked if the government is now in possession of alien aircraft.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe.
News Nation's Ross Coulthart on assignment in Cairo, Egypt, reacting to the hearing.
Frankly, the implications are that we're picking up things on our space sensor systems that are extraordinarily important. And all that is needed is a change of attitude inside NASA to start taking this issue seriously.
Lawmakers say the whole goal of these hearings is to pull back the curtain on this issue. And, Marky, we might see even more of these hearings in the year to come. Marky?
Yeah, I imagine there's more where that came from. Tom Dempsey, live from D.C. this morning. Thank you so much. Lawmakers spent hours asking UFO experts about the government and unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UFOs. One whistleblower saying Wednesday was a historic day in the search for transparency. Luis Elizondo says UAPs are real and part of a secret arms race. Joining me now, I have Micah Hanks, host of the Micah Hanks program and co-founder of The Debrief, a news website. Micah, good morning to you. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Marky.
So we all went into yesterday, right, saying, okay, give us something to work with here. Any big bombshells or nuggets that really stood out to you?
Well, certainly a lot of things that will be of interest to people over the next 4 years, but I think there are a lot of us who really watch the UAP subject who are still wanting more. We have a lot of former officials who have, gone on the record under oath and said, listen, there's more to what the U.S. government knows about UAP than what Congress is being told and what the American people are being told. Unfortunately, right now, most of what we are hearing is information pertaining to alleged secret programs, whistleblower allegations. And again, what I think many people want is more confirmed information, more individuals on the record. Yeah. A lot of this coming secondhand to journalists, which again, unfortunately, given the climate and the nature of the subject, that's understandable to an extent. But again, I think a lot of people came away from yesterday's hearing saying we'd like to see a little more tangible evidence.
Yes. Is it fair to say you walked away dissatisfied?
Well, on the one hand, there was some dissatisfaction, but I think that there are also a lot of interesting things that came out of the hearing yesterday. For instance, we had a former official, Tim Gallaudet, saying that he had met with the DOD's current UAP investigative group, AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And he described that meeting as being almost more like what he characterized, his own terms here, as an influence operation. He said that essentially they tried to convince him that UAP cases that he was aware of and that other former officials had experienced might involve U.S. technologies and things along these lines. And so really, I think that as far as dissatisfaction, some of these officials were the ones who came away saying we're extremely dissatisfied with the level of scrutiny being placed on this by the government and also what we are being told.
I know that Congresswoman Mace said that the hearing was a success. I wanted to play a bit of sound from her because she raised some serious questions with former Pentagon official Lou Elizondo during the hearing. Take a quick listen.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
Why are people, anytime they ask, why are they always thwarted? Why are they always judged? Why is they always have misinformation spread? Why is there always retribution? Why is it always met with an ear? What's the why? If it doesn't exist, why is it such a problem?
Yeah, Congresswoman Mace hopes that this will help more whistleblowers come forward. But Micah, what's it going to take to see that evidence at some point to back up these claims?
Well, according to the former lawmakers, including Mr. Luis Elizondo, who you played in the clip there, it's going to take more people coming forward and more people being willing to talk about this. But one of the issues that those former officials were discussing during this session yesterday had been the prevailing stigma. And this had been something that also Mike Gold, one of the witnesses providing testimony there, formerly with NASA, Mike Gold really emphasized this as having been part of the study group that had been looking into UAP within NASA. He said without this, or rather with this stigma, it even impeded his study group's ability to be able to look at this. Luis Elizondo and others are saying, look, we've come forward. We need others to come forward and to really go on the record and say there is a problem here. Government transparency is a real issue. We need them to be more forthcoming with both Congress and the American people.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are wondering, will a new Trump administration kind of change the game when it comes to transparency on this at all? We'll just wait and see. Micah Hanks, thanks so much for your time this morning. Appreciate your expertise.
Thank you, Marky.
Have Republican Congressman from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, who took part in those hearings. Burchett, how you doing this morning, sir?
Dadgummit, it's a beautiful morning in America.
I knew it. I knew it. Okay, I have to ask you right off the top, did you walk away yesterday satisfied, or did you say dadgummit? You know, did you want more from yesterday?
Oh, I always say dadgummit after these miserable hearings. They're bogus. Look, and I could have answered every one of those dadgum questions, and you know it, and I know it. I know more about this than the average bear, I guess. Maybe that's the scary thought, but this thing's a cover-up. We're spending tens of millions of dollars on this issue, on something that some little arrogant jerk tells us in a skiff with a man bun tells us that don't exist. And then we're looking at video right there, and you ask him about those specific videos, and he'll say, I have no data on that. And then he smirks.
I'm a little surprised that you call these hearings worthless. You've been kind of one of the ones spearheading this and pushing this forward for transparency. I'm surprised to hear you say that.
Well, it's because, I know what needs to happen now. I mean, maybe I didn't at first, but at this point, all we're doing is rehashing other things, and we got more. And well, I guess if you want to hear more government officials that have some guts to tell us that these things actually do exist. I mean, I don't know anymore how much more proof we need of that. What we need is somebody in the executive office to come forth with this stuff, and I think Trump is the guy. He's tired of it. This is part of the D.C. sewer. These secrets they keep, it's for power, it's for control, it's greed, those things that drive this country.
Let me ask you about the Trump administration, because I know he just went on the Joe Rogan podcast not that long ago. He said UFOs, extraterrestrial life, not really my thing. Do you have confidence that his new administration will kind of change the game on transparency and we will, in fact, learn more?
Yes, ma'am. I have the utmost confidence in President Trump. In my conversations with him and his people, I believe he is about disclosure. And Rogan maybe knows a little bit more about it. And unless a president is read in, as they say, to these issues, they're not going to know unless it's something that they've followed. We've had testimony to tell us that folks have told us that presidents have been denied access to this kind of thing. And you tell Trump he doesn't have access to something, you better just get out of the way, because he's going to run your ass over.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you and play a bit of sound, because I know Representative Mace raising some serious questions with former Pentagon officials during the hearing. Take a look at just kind of this Q&A portion real quick.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
Why are people, anytime they ask, why are they always thwarted? Why are they always judged? Why is they always have misinformation spread? Why is there always retribution? Why is it always met with an ear? What's the why? If it doesn't exist, why is it such a problem?
Yeah, so, Congressman, I think my biggest question this whole time has been, what's the use of the government covering up this department if it, in fact, does exist? Why not tell the American people, hey, we actually do have a department that looks at unidentified objects in our airspace? I mean, what's their gain from hiding that? I don't understand.
That's my boy Jared Moskowitz across the aisle. He was my Santa Claus last year at my
at your party.
At my party. We went 16 minutes last year. It's going to be 15 minutes this year because we felt it kind of dragged last year. You're invited, of course, if you'd like to come.
Thank you. I'll be looking for my invite.
It would up your standards. But anyway, no, the thing is just covered up, and that's the frustration of it. They say they don't exist, but they spend tens of millions of dollars on an issue that every department. We had people from NASA there, and I'm sure there were some spooks from the CIA that were watching to make sure nothing was said that would get their overlords in trouble. But the reality is this is a multi-level cover-up, and we're not going to, Congress, we don't have the ability or the guts to get to the bottom of this. Let's just be honest, Marquis. This dadgum thing has been covered up for over 50, 60 years now.
According to the whistleblowers, a long time. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And they're not going to give us any more information. And
I have Republican Congressman from Missouri, Eric Burleson, who sits on the committee that heard yesterday's hearing. Congressman, good morning to you from the halls of Congress. Thanks for hopping on with me.
Good morning.
So I think the general public was really going into yesterday saying, okay, come on, give us something to work with here. At the end of that hearing, did you walk away with anything kind of new to chew on to propel this investigation forward?
I think that some of the reports are underscoring things that we've seen before. So I don't know that you could say that we've learned anything that we haven't been told before. But what I will say is that we continue to see a steady stream of very reputable individuals coming out of the Pentagon and blowing a whistle and saying very consistent things. And so to me, that is really the remarkable story here. Of course, I said I'm from Missouri. I'm from the Show Me State. I still want to see before I'm going to believe. And I want to see. And so I think that where Lou and some of these others have the value they bring forward is that I think that we can create a strategy, and hopefully with a new Trump administration, with the new speaker coming in, that we might have an opportunity for disclosure.
Yeah, a lot of people wanting to see more evidence here. I wanted to play a bit of sound for you, sir, because earlier on the show, I spoke to Congressman Tim Burchett, and here's what he says is the answer to all of the hush-hush about UFOs.
Oh, I always say dadgummit after these miserable hearings. They're bogus. What we need is somebody in the executive office to come forth with this stuff. And I think Trump is the guy. He's tired of it. This is part of the D.C. sewer. These secrets they keep, it's for power, it's for control.
Yeah, Congressman, I will say I called him out for calling it bogus. I was kind of taken aback by that because he's kind of been the leader of wanting more transparency. Do you agree with Burchett's take there that these hearings are a waste of time and a waste of money?
I think that anytime that we understand that there's a lot of money being spent and being wasted, and we find out that there are agencies within the federal government that are lying or trying to hide information from Congress, I think it's an appropriate measure. And I think we have a responsibility to conduct oversight and get to the bottom of those questions. So I do think that it's necessary. I share the frustration that Tim has, which is that we often get into these hearings and people will say, I can only say that to you in a SCIF or in a secure setting. But I think that at least we're able to continue to have the discussion, move the ball forward, keep this topic fresh in people's minds. And I think the more that we talk about it, the more there's a likelihood that a President Trump or someone is going to be pushed for release of the information.
And maybe pull back the curtains on this story a bit further. Lastly, just about 30 seconds left with you, Congressman. You talk about keeping it fresh on people's mind. Do you worry that interest in this story is waning, for the public, when every time you have this hearing, there's nothing major that comes from it, no evidence that's really brought forward? Do you worry about that and the public losing interest in the story?
I don't, because I think that the interest is only accelerating. I think that more and more people are paying attention and are intrigued, and I think that as we have these hearings, more and more credible whistleblowers are coming forward, and I think that that adds value and legitimacy to the discussion.
All right, we will see when the next one is held. Congressman Eric Burleson, thank you so much for joining me on Morning in America. Appreciate your time.
Ranking Member, 5 additional minutes for questions without objection, so ordered. Mr. Elizondo, were you read into the Immaculate Constellation program?
I would not be authorized to confirm nor deny the existence of any ongoing or past program, especially as it relates to a special access program, either by name or trigraph.
Okay, and then does the U.S. government or private contractors, do they work with other foreign countries, China, for example, to exchange data, quote from a source, that intelligence data about UAP?
Let me see if I can answer that a little bit more generally, ma'am, if I may. We do have foreign material exploitation programs. That is something that is widely known, and that term itself is unclassified. How exactly that works becomes a bit sensitive. A discussion we could certainly have in a closed session if you like. We do work with international partners and allies quite often, not just in military exercises and workups, but in other intelligence efforts as well.
In terms of material that's given to private contractors, is certain material given to certain contractors because of their experience? So, for example, if it's related to submerged and undersea propulsion, would it go to a general contractor like General Dynamics?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely correct. Different contractors have different levels of expertise.
What's Lockheed's expertise?
Aerospace, ma'am.
In the UAP space, that's all that they wouldn't do submerged.
No, I didn't say that, ma'am.
Okay.
Lockheed Martin and others do quite a bit of work both in our atmosphere, in space, and even underwater. There are certain efforts to. It's a tough question you're asking. You put me on the spot here.
I'm looking for the answer.
Yes, ma'am. No, they are involved in a lot. I would rather let Lockheed Martin explain the different domains that they are involved with. Probably not authorized to discuss that, but they are involved in a lot of different areas and domains.
Admiral, flight safety risks for our pilots, based on what you've experienced and seen in your career.
They're extensive, and the one exercise I referred to where I received the email that was then deleted was the pilots, and this is worth bringing out. There are debunkers out there who have said the Go Fast video was just a balloon. That was only one video that was released. There were dozens of these encounters that pilots, friends of Ryan Graves, who's in this room right here, witnessed and caused significant safety concerns. And to almost call out an exercise and shut it down, which is very compressed, and the carrier's getting ready for deployment, and the pilots have to get certified to land on a carrier, it's extreme, to say the least.
All right, I have two last questions. Real quickly, Mr. Schellenberger, how do we get more whistleblowers to come forward?
Well, this hearing is very important, and obviously, I can't encourage whistleblowers to obtain information, but I can guarantee that I will protect them and go to prison to protect their identities if they come to me.
Yes, sir. Okay, my last question. The first hearing we had on this, I'd never been briefed on UAPs or what they were, biologics, non-human, et cetera. How would you define, each of you, my last question, how would you define non-human biologics, non-human intelligence? What are we actually talking about? Admiral, and we'll go down the line.
I don't think it's a stretch when you look at the diversity of life on this planet and the size of this universe to think that there would be more diverse, higher order, non-human intelligences throughout the universe, and that's probably what's visiting us.
I would take the scientific approach. The definition would be the ability to react to a stimulus in a manner that requires an intellectual thought process.
I just don't know.
I think we must be modest in our assumptions that we're looking for intelligence. That could be biological, it might not.
Non-biological, but what non-biological intelligence, what does that mean though?
Artificial intelligence, ML, machines. We assume that all intelligence would be like us, and every time we look out in the universe, we are humbled relative to what we don't know in terms of the forms of intelligence and what it may take. I can assure you I probably can't ask you your question, but I think the ultimate answer is going to surprise us all.
And then Mr. Garcia, you had a few closing remarks.
Let me be clear. UAP are real.
That was former Pentagon official Luis Elizondo in his opening remarks to the House Oversight Committee and Accountability Subcommittee hearing Wednesday. The witnesses spoke about unidentified aerial phenomenon, aka UAPs. Here's more from Elizondo.
Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies.
Frequent guest on this show and founder of the public newsletter and Substack, Michael Schellenberger, testified that Pentagon sources confirmed the existence of an unacknowledged special access program, that program known as Immaculate Constellation. Schellenberger handed Congress a 12-page report on the program, in which he claims there are high-quality images of UAPs and recorded first-hand observations. Here's what Schellenberger said. Take a look.
I think that what the American people need to know is that the U.S. military and intelligence community are sitting on a huge amount of visual and other information, still photos, video photos, other sensor information, and they have for a very long time. And it's not those fuzzy photos and videos that we've been given. There's very clear
high res,
images, high resolution.
How many visuals, graphics, videos, photos?
I mean, I've been told hundreds, maybe thousands.
There was a lot to the hearing. Here's a bit more. Let's watch.
Briefly, do you believe, just for the record, that the federal government, any part of the federal government, is knowingly concealing evidence about UAPs from the public?
Yes, sir.
100%.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. I also want to just go down the line. And I know many of you have already said this, but I just, for the record again, just briefly, what do you believe UAPs could be or are?
Strong evidence that they are non-human, higher intelligence.
I echo my colleague's comment, sir.
Genuinely do not know.
Don't know, but we must find out.
Joining us now to discuss is Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett, who has pushed for hearings on UAPs and more disclosure of what the government might know. Congressman, we're so happy to have you join us.
Thank y'all for having me.
It's our pleasure. What needs to happen in order for there to be disclosures or the public's ability to process what we're hearing? Because what I feel like at so many of these kinds of hearings, which I think are tremendously beneficial, but what we hear is journalists or whistleblowers describing other people who have access to information that the public still can't get at, and it becomes frustrating. Well, if there's someone who knows something, can we hear from that person and actually see the evidence that they have?
Well, it's very frustrating, and I'm glad we had the hearing yesterday just to show how pathetic the situation is. We have a government spending tens of millions of dollars on something they say doesn't exist, and then when we want to see files of these in pictures, they're heavily redacted, or they tell us they don't exist when another department tells us they do. The only thing that's going to fix this is the man that's going to the White House, Donald J. Trump. We've got to demand from him and our legislators total disclosure. We need transparency. You all are in the media. You know what that means, more so than anybody else. The government, we can't trust this government. It is so deep and so broad that no one really grasps what's going on with this whole thing. So I think if the president comes forth and says we're going to disclose it, and here it is, that will fix it.
And to that point, Congressman, can I just clarify exactly your position on this? Do you think there is evidence there? Well, let me rephrase that. Do you know there is evidence there that is being concealed, or is your request simply for more transparency and you are agnostic as to what will be shown if there is greater transparency?
I'm 100% convinced that there's stuff being concealed. I've seen things that they won't let out. I've talked to people in the know, and they feel retribution, and that's why I filed a bill on whistleblowers on this very same subject. And I hope our Congress and the Senate have the guts to pass the dadgum thing, because that's what we're going to need. That, but we're also going to need a president that will trust the American public to discern for themselves.
The lack of transparency from the federal government is so automatic that I fully believe they would, redact and keep secret things that are totally benign and don't need to be secret at all. And then additionally will, keep secrets for COVID origins and Kennedy files and all that other stuff that, despite clear mandates from Congress, often in bipartisan fashion to disclose what is known, on COVID origins, right? You all passed that bill. President Biden signed it, and all we got was a press release summarizing things we already know. It is so frustrating. Do you have the faith that Donald Trump, during his second term, can start to change this?
I do, because of the people that he's chosen to surround himself with on this go around, and from my discussions with him, I feel like he will be the president of disclosure. I have this group in the UFO community and out in the public, you open records folks, praising the Senate's version, Chuck Schumer's 60-page version. And yesterday, even one of the members was praising it, how it mimicked the Kennedy files, the dissemination of information there. And here we are 60 years, more than 60 years after Kennedy was assassinated, and we know very little more than we knew when it happened. And all the people are dead that are involved with it. We got to get this stuff out, and we've got to get it to the people, because I do not trust this government. It is too broad and too deep.
Can you just give us any more detail or texture, Congressman, as to your discussions with President-elect Trump on this particular matter? What's his stance on it? What does he say to you when you have had those conversations with him?
I think it's an open book with him. He has clearly been left out on information because of the people that were around him before were old, or were just old neocons that hang around and always end up hired in government, and they protect that information. It's about power, it's about greed, it's about corruption, and all those things that run this town we call Washington, D.C. And I think Trump's had enough of it. He knows this time he's not just going to have to take the head people out. He's got to go much deeper than that. And I think when he does that, you will see a lot of this information shake loose, and a lot of people will come forward because they're not afraid of retribution at that point.
And you think it really is retribution that keeps people from going forward? Because we heard from those witnesses at that hearing yesterday, and they all said, or most of them said, that they do think the UAP information or what they've seen points to non-Earth, alien, presumably, constructions, rather than just what I think is at least somewhat more plausible being military technology from another government. They said they actually think it's originating off of Earth. If somebody had evidence of that, right, I have a hard time believing that would be the biggest news story in human history, and you're afraid of losing your job. Is it more than just fear of losing your job? Do they threaten people's families? Do they kidnap people? It's just such an amazing thing to be able to prove, and to be afraid of the reputational harm. I always wonder what is really going on that stops people.
We had a suspected whistleblower die mysteriously, and over the last year, David Grush was a very weak job of doing it, but they claimed he had mental issues from combat exposure, which to me is pretty common. I'm not sure why they thought that would bring him to his knees, and that was immediately put out after his testimony to discredit him. So I think there is a lot. And you talk to pilots, they won't come forward. I've talked to pilots in confidential settings where they've said, we don't come forward, Tim, because we will be pulled off the flight line. We'll have a psych evaluation, and the debriefing will be more of an interrogation by some men in suits. I call them spooks. They're usually CIA or some other group, NSA or some other group, but that's generally what happens to these people. Airline pilots will tell you that have seen things. They come out years later because they didn't want to announce it then, because again, they possibly lose their job or other things. So yeah, the threat is real. And again, it's not going to end until Trump ends it.
Well, we hope the ground is shifting there so that we can get disclosures about this very, very important subject. Congressman, thank you so much for
Immaculate Constellation, I'll be on some list. Maybe a FISA warrant, so come at me, bro, I guess.
I think that what the American people need to know is that the U.S. military and intelligence community are sitting on a huge amount of visual and other information, still photos, video photos, other sensor information, and they have for a very long time. And it's not those fuzzy photos and videos that we've been given. There's very clear
high
res, high resolution.
How many visuals, graphics, videos, photos?
I mean, I've been told hundreds, maybe thousands.
All right, Michael Schellenberger joins me now. Great to have you here. Just on what you were just saying in your testimony, have you actually seen these high-res images of these UFOs, or have you just been told they exist?
No, I have not seen anything other than what's been released before and some of the things that you showed. But I have spoken, it's not just to a single source, but multiple sources that say that these databases exist. And as the report that was released today by Congresswoman Nancy Mace, the chairwoman of the committee, that report actually links those images, both the still images and the video images, with some of the psychological and physical effects of different shaped UAPs. I think that's one of the most interesting things that came out of the hearing.
Which was what? The different shapes?
Well, yeah, and the sort of analysis that connects different UAP shapes to different experiences that people report in having contact with them. So you're seeing really the marriage. The idea here is that the Immaculate Constellation, which is an unacknowledged special access program, actually has the analysis that combines both the human experiences but also the physical characteristics of these craft or these UAP.
So we just heard Lou Elizondo, when questioned, say, under oath, say, yes, there's a program that exists, a secret program that exists, and yes, they have managed to get crashed aircraft and take the remains of that aircraft to study. When we first heard David Grush here on News Nation, he did it for the first time, say that this program existed, everybody thought he was crazy. And, then slowly, more people, they keep coming up with the same story, the same reporting, something you yourself say you have also confirmed. And yet the Pentagon just stands there and says it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think it's also, there's one concern, which is a legitimate concern, which is that there may be circular reporting here where, in other words, you might be getting from one source, you might think you have a second source, but if that second source gets it from the same first source, I'm confident that that did not happen in my reporting on Immaculate Constellation. I have multiple sources and also sources that came forward after my report. I also reported on a pretty stunning description of orbs, one orb coming out of the ocean about 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait, being joined by another orb, high-definition video shot from a helicopter, not any sort of top-secret technology filming that. So I just think there's a lot of people that have come forward now at this point that this is not circular reporting, this is not just folklore. The Pentagon is clearly covering something up. I mean, you don't even need this report. I mean, both President Trump and former President Barack Obama have both stated that they've seen information that's not been released. And I just think the Pentagon is treating us like children. It's a very paternalistic attitude. They just need to release the information, obviously redact stuff to make sure that nothing gets out to our enemies, but we're long overdue for this sort of disclosure and transparency to occur.
Michael, what do you think, based on all of your investigative reporting, the Pentagon is doing with this reverse engineering program? Are they looking at some sort of weapon, at some sort of defense system?
I mean, that's my understanding of it, is that that it would make sense that the military, if it's capturing some sort of material or some sort of craft, they'd be looking to, turn it into some sort of weapon or, whether or defensive. I honestly don't know, and I also don't know what UAPs are, and I don't claim to know. But I'm very confident that the Pentagon and the intelligence community are hiding a lot of information about UAPs. I think that's very well established at this point. I mean, we have a lot of evidence and a lot of people, including heads of state, former heads of the United States, that have said that. Former intelligence community officials, both on the right and the left. I mean, this was an incredibly bipartisan group today. So I think that there's been a lot of questions about, like, what are UAPs? And that's fascinating. And, of course, that's important. But it's well established now that the military and the intelligence community are hiding a significant amount of data that they have an obligation under the Constitution to report to Congress, and I think they also have a moral obligation and perhaps a legal one as well to make that information available to the public.
To your point, I think we've seen over the decades that we have certain adversaries like China, like Russia, that technologically speaking are not as advanced as us, that they lack some of the lethality that we have, and that we've seen that they've gone after our technologies and in some cases succeeded, in particular with missile technology. And so again, my concern, whether this technology emanates from us or otherworldly, that we know that we possess it. And where's the accountability? Where are the stopgaps? What are the guarantees that if this were to fall in enemy hands, that it isn't immediately weaponized against us? And I'll say this, it is clear from my experience and what I've seen that there is something out there. The question is it ours? Is it someone else's? Or is it otherworldly? And Madam Chairman, I would posit that as the legislative body, as the regulatory body, we must know. And anyone who prevents us from gaining access to that information, I would consider that criminality. Because we have U.S. personnel who may very well be in harm's way. We have technology that ultimately may threaten our very existence. With that, Madam Chairman, I thank you for your indulgence, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Ogles. And with that and without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and to submit additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses for their response. If there's no further business without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.